We will call to order the January meeting of the Community Development, Housing, and General Government Committee to order. As it is our practice, we will take the consent agenda and then a general agenda. Are there items on the consent agenda that members of the committee or council members present would like to have pulled? Mr. Page?
Chair Montgomery, I believe there are a couple of citizens here on some of the demolition.
I have to get to that.
I have nothing to pull.
Okay.
No.
I have someone here for C4, 126 Connor Road, and then have someone here for 2500 Lyman Street. Which one is that?
Is that C11 maybe? No.
C7?
I move for approval of the...
Oh, sorry. Are there any others for any other item, housing case? Yes, sir. Would,
I'm here to represent 1739
1730.
C6.
Yes, ma'am.
2408 Winston-Salem Street.
C9.
Okay. So that is C7, C4, C6, and C9. All right. Hearing no others.
I move for the balance of the consent agenda
Is there
approval.
a second? That's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Yeah.
We got to get the Jeopardy clock. That is unanimous. And just as information, Councilmember Clark was here. He had to leave. He had an issue at work that he had to go back and attend to. He may return in time. All right, starting with item C4. Item C4.
Item C4, SDS Investment LLC, 126 Connor Road.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The summary of staff's report for 126 Connor Road. All due diligence was followed. As stated, the property is 126 Connor Road. It's located in the North Ward. It's owned by SDS Investments LLC. The list pendants was filed on the property on July 22nd of 2016. The property became eligible for demolition on February the 6th of 2017, and it is minus 50 category. Certified mail was returned on the property. For the hearing and for the repair and vacate order.
Okay. We have here Ms. Amy Ruth Hallett, I believe, if I pronounced that correctly. You come forward to the podium here and give your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is Amy Ruth Hallett, and I am the president of 2H Investments Corporation that owns the property at 2500 Lamont Street.
You also do something else in this community,
Yes,
don't you?
I do. And thank you very much for shopping at the UPS store this year.
All right.
And I will tell you that the city's dollars are well used. We do have 2 Winston-Salem State University students employed, and we did hire one of our summer interns. And he actually is working full-time down at Knollwood, at the Knollwood Street store. He's actually closing it right now as we speak.
Yeah. Do you know what I've done? I've called you up prematurely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
And so if you to take just that, you're C7,
Yes.
and I skipped over. I went in order that is written and not order of
I'm
what we
okay
have.
with that.
So I'm sorry. I
Don't worry.
apologize for that.
I'll be back.
We have a Stephen Smith. I'm sorry. Why don't you give your name and address for the record?
Steve Smith. I'm an attorney here in Winston-Salem, 500 Olive Street, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27103. I represent SDS Investments What I'm here asking for is I got notice of this, I think it was last Thursday. I contacted Al Andrews with the city to find out a little more about what was going on. It was a notice on the home. Since that time, we received actual notices in the mail. We don't remember actually having and receiving, and I looked online to try to determine it, the notice of hearing, that an actual hearing occurred and that there was an order, but I've had such little time to go back and look, we haven't been able to do it. What I'm asking you to do is put this off, but I wanted to show a couple of pictures. One of the issues that we've had on this, there's at least what we received in the mail, it was showing that the items of concern is some screens on the doors, the front door, I think, and some screens and what I call glazing in the windows. Other than that, the only other item that's been addressed was it said there was some sewage that was dumped out of a sewer line. That sewer line issue was completed and repaired back in 2016. We're trying to get, I found an email into that respect, but we're trying to get the information so that we can forward it. One of the things that I'd like to show, if this is on, this is the property, or what it looked like beside this property, between this particular piece of property and 118 Connor Road, as of about 5 days ago. One of the issues that we've had is that there's an individual, it's a Sante construction company, has gotten approval from this about a year and a half ago or so for a LCID landfill in the back of the property. In that, we've had continual problems with them doing stuff like this, but this is rocks. And it's LCID debris, but it's not properly closed out. We sent letters last year demanding that it be cleaned up and done. Clearly, the house is sitting empty due to the fact that you couldn't, this is basically the driveway. You couldn't rent it if you wanted to. I think because of this, and hopefully our letters that we've tried, this is now, as of the other day, a loader came out and they actually cleared the area and cleaned off and filled back in, as it should have been done when it's closed out to clean up to be done. So I have another, this is, you can actually see the corner of the house in this particular picture, which is right here, down the side area where they cleaned it, finally cleared it up, but it was block, rock, busted concrete, that type stuff. Other than that, I don't think that it meets the requirements under the particular statute that is referenced. Yes, it has been sitting empty for 6 months, but the owners have not had the intent to abandon the property and or not repair. The only outstanding, again, the repairs have been done in reference to the drain pipe, which was damaged by the heavy equipment that you see that brought in the LCID stuff. And then, and if you looked at the pictures that are attached, at least I found in reference to this particular hearing today, most of them are that the house is a nice-looking house, presents well. The only thing is, it's, for example, it may have a screen on one window but not the other, and some glazing in the windows. Other than that, that's that. In again, the pipe's been repaired. We've got the invoices for those. We're just trying to get that information together. So what I'm asking is that this particular hearing, I know it's set. We just got a letter yesterday that it's set again for next week in front of the council. I'm asking it to move it off if we can for 30 days and then come back. Hopefully we have an opportunity to give the city officials the information that we need, especially in light of the fact that we now have, it looks like some compliance in trying to clean up. We were surprised that they showed up when they did, but some compliance in trying to clean that up so that we can upfit the house and finish it so that it doesn't get torn up.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Councilmember Adams, this is in North Ward.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Montgomery. We appreciate you being here, but I'm one of these no-nonsense type people. Everybody knows that about me. I always try to help developers and property owners to understand whatever your expectations are, or the council, the people that are most affected by this are the people that live in the community. And again, when people live in my community, I hold everybody to a high level of expectation and results. the fact that I can respect the fact that you're here to represent your client. I do, because they're fortunate. A lot of people that come here don't have that opportunity. But, you know, Councilman Montgomery, I will allow 30 days, but you might want to tell the people that own this house that when you get on my radar and the community starts calling me about houses that they have to go by, drive by, because I look at people like us, we wouldn't put up with it, and we don't have to worry about people looking out for us because we know how to look out for ourselves. But they elect people like me and the staff here in the city of Winston-Salem to look out for them. So please pass on to your clients that we will adhere to give them, I'll make a motion that we give them 30 days, Chair, to get the rest of it in compliance. But I don't care if it's one screen, one broken pane, it's one too many for me. And based on not the ordinance of D.D. Adams, the ordinances of the city of Winston-Salem, it's not compliant. Because if we allowed everybody to just say, well, it's just one window, one screen, one door missing, imagine what our town would look like, particularly my community and some others in the city. So again, I thank you, and with that.
Well, without objection, I'll say that we hold this in committee until next month, or would you care for an actual motion?
I want a motion.
Okay.
If I may, the standard motion is 90 days repair or demolish. So, you know, if it's, there are only, in addition to the sewer line, if that's already fixed, there are only 3 other things. There's reglaze the windows, repair or replace screens on windows, and repair or replace screens on doors. So it ought to be a simple matter to get this done in, you know, as
30 days.
30 days.
And that's all we're asking,
Yeah,
just
they
an
can
opportunity to get in there and find out what's going on.
So, you know, that's,
I appreciate you getting the most sightly pieces of it cleaned up. I appreciate
Which wasn't
And I'm
your,
surprised we finally got somebody in there because
I
we've
know.
been pushing it for a while.
well, question this so that it's clarity that's there. So the normal motion that we will make on an item like
Is the
this
90
is
days.
to affirm the staff's recommendation to issue the order for repair or demolition, which gives 90 days for that to be done. If it's repaired within that 90 days and staff is called, you have to call them, and they come out and they check that property and see that all those items have been done, they will then ask council to rescind that action. And what we've also done is, if the person agrees to that, we also do a voluntary demolition agreement, which pretty much states that if it's not done within this time frame, things move forward with that. So I want you to understand what would happen if we move forward with this, which I think is the conversation here. So it would be 90 days, and that will be given to be able to have this taken care of. The attorneys, are you looking?
Yeah, I was looking at Councilmember Adams. I was going to suggest that to do as she indicated, which is leave it in committee for 30 days, so to come back up in February.
All right. Well, that was my initial recommendation, but I felt the committee was looking in a different direction. So
I would suggest you go with Councilmember Adams' initial recommendation. Motion.
what is the pleasure of the committee? Put a motion on the floor and let me carry.
30 days.
Is that a motion?
Exactly.
That we hold it in committee for
Yeah, we
30
hold
days?
it.
Is there a second?
sure.
He got my back. My other one just came in.
Indicate on make your motion.
My other one just came in.
All right. So
Thank
none
you.
of what I said will matter.
No, I knew where you were going, but I think the 30 days we'll be able to
Okay.
have that information and
All
stuff.
right. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor? If it comes up here,
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah.
that's unanimous.
Thank you.
We will now move to item C5. If it's without objection from the committee, someone came in right after we had taken the consent agenda and is here to speak on
Okay.
item C5. And so staff will come for item C5. Item C5. Sir, if you're here for C5, staff will make a presentation, then we'll have you come up. Item C5.
Item C5, Eric Glenn, 1518 East 22nd Street.
Thank you. And just a couple of points I should make about all the cases that are coming before you this evening. All of these cases are in the -50 category, which means that the repairs can be made for less than a very substantial amount in comparison to the real property values of the property. I'd also just like to mention that even with the 90 days after the committee or council approves a demolition, there's 90 days, as you said, but our process actually gives a minimum of 8 months before it actually comes to the council. So we start out with a notice of hearing. That letter is certified in regular mail. We send a repair or vacate order, which is another 30 days. So that's 2 months. And then in addition to that, we then wait for 6 months, and we visit the property every 2 months during that 6 months. So that's a total of 8 months at a minimum before any property rolls onto the demolition consideration. Property 1518 East 22nd Street is in the Northeast Ward. It is owned by Mr. Eric and Mrs. Lavastian Glenn. The list pendants was recorded at the Register of Deeds office on May 11th of 2017, and the property became eligible for demolition November 22nd of 2017.
And the gentleman's here to speak on this item. If you come forward to the podium here and give your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Eric Glenn. My address is 310 Wayside Drive. That's 27107.
All right.
Where to start? Okay, so the house is in disrepair. We're aware of that. We are making plans to have contractors go and provide us with estimates. What happened was we no longer live in the house. We had rented it out to family members. That did not work well, so the house was boarded up because it wasn't being lived in. With it not being lived in, there were squatters that came in, and actually there's a fire in the home. So that constitutes some of the damage on the property. What I would like to ask this committee would be to remove this house from the demolition list, allowing us enough time to step in and get it in repair. You know, again, we used to live in that community. I still work in that community. I have a lot of respect for the community. I have a lot of respect for the people in that community, and it's not our intention to, you know, have our property be a blight. But again, we attempted to rent it out, and it's kind of hard being a landlord. So, understanding all that, our intention is to get the house ready to sell, and either sell it, or if we can find someone that we trust to rent it. But definitely, it's a family home, and we will definitely do whatever we need to not have it demolished, you know, and not have it be an eyesore to the community.
What's your timeline?
If we could have at least 120 days to step in and get it up to snuff, because the damages look bad, but apparently it's less than 50% of the value. So if we can get a contractor in there, get a real idea of exactly how much we're looking at, and just bite it off piece by piece and make the repairs, that's why I'm here today, to see if that's possible.
I will yield to the committee members that are present. This is in the Northeast Ward, and Councilman Burke isn't here, and for those type of liens, I'd love to hear what the council person thinks about those kind of grace periods added. But Councilman Adams?
The one thing that I can commend you for is that you understand again that right now the city of Winston-Salem, of course, yes, we're dealing with affordable housing issues and blight and poverty and other things in our communities that keep our communities from moving forward.
Yes, ma'am.
But the one thing that we know, we like our communities to look good just like everybody else. Maybe our houses aren't valued at $250,000, but to us they're priceless. And all we ask people that own properties in our communities is to treat the house like you treat your neighborhood. That's all. I understand your situation of not being able to rent the house and attempting to rent it and it not turn out the way you want it. But the one thing that bothers me after being on the council almost a decade now, it takes nothing for people to go out and clean up the outside. Regardless of what the inside looks like, if you can just clean up the outside. If the windows have to be boarded, then I understand that too. But cleaning up trash, cleaning off the porches, you know, removing anything that the neighborhood, again, they got to drive by, walk by every day. And I agree. I don't want to see the house torn down. I mean, it's part of the community. And again, we got a lot of citizens telling us that. If we can keep at the rate we're going, because people don't want to be responsible to keep the properties looking decent, we want people to have somewhere to stay, and we want it to be affordable, and we want people to stay in the community. So without the council member being here for the ward, I think maybe that she would allow him the extra time, 4 months versus 3, to...
Is that a motion?
I make a motion that we give him the allowed 120 days.
I'll second that. That's second. Councilmember McIntosh.
Quick question. Eric, didn't we work together at a nonprofit years ago?
We did.
Okay.
I can't remember where, but
Samaritan?
Samaritan, Soup Kitchen.
Good. This is exactly the kind of house I think we don't want to lose. I mean, if this house can come back and be good, affordable housing, that's what we all want. Are there any programs that is this in a turn neighborhood, or can anybody assist with offering him whatever options that we might have that would be of assistance? Has it been done?
Don't know if that's been done yet, and we could have that conversation, but just of course that will slow down the process beyond the 120 days that you are offering. You're probably going to need to add a couple more months to that if we try to go through one of the loan rehab programs.
Can we take a quick, I'd like to see a meeting and just take a quick look at and see whether it would make sense or not before we delve into the delaying aspect of going through the whole process, so if that's a possibility. Thank you.
Madam Attorney?
No, I was asking, in terms of the fire situations of this nature, if you wanted to do the VDA, support with the ordinance and the VDA, you want to handle it in that manner,
With the same time frame?
120 days.
I accept the amendment. Friendly amendment.
I'll accept the second to the friendly
So to make you understand what that means, in terms of the VDA, means that the time frame that will be granted, 120 days that will be granted, if you sign that agreement with staff, if you don't meet that time frame, it will automatically kick forward into the demolition of the property.
Okay.
And that's something that you're comfortable with?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
If I could, sir, stay in touch with us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Time moves
You know,
real fast.
if you're working hard on it, 120 days comes and you still got a couple more brick to put on it, stay in touch with us. We want to help you.
Right. Okay. All right. So that is a motion for 120 days with the VDA. All in favor, vote by hitting your yes. Those opposed, no. All right. That is unanimous. Thank you. And make sure staff connects with him. We already, okay.
We
All right.
still need to sign that quickly.
All right. Item C6.
Item C6, David Arnold Cole, 1739 Old Salisbury Road.
This property is located in the South Ward. The list pendants was filed at the Register of Deeds office on July 22nd of 2016. The property became eligible for demolition February the 26th of 2017.
Who's here to speak on this item, C? You can come forward to the podium here, and when you get there, if you give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Edward Ray Foster. My address is 1673 Crayshore Drive, Louisville, North Carolina. I'm here to represent David Arnold Cole, who could not be here. Mr. Cole is disabled, but one of the several points I have here, but one of the main things needs to be pointed out is I realize this property has been under notice for quite some time, but Mr. Cole is not the owner. It hasn't been the owner all the time. It's been James Furchess was an elderly man, 87 years old, on the house, and he couldn't do the work, so he finally decided to sell the house. And David Arnold Cole bought the house. I have a copy of the deed transfer here for September the 5th, 2017, which is maybe 4 months. And he has, and during this time, he has done a lot of the work that is on the list that was on the complaint, the original complaint. I have photographs of what has been done and receipts and documentation. What he's asking for, and the community of people helping Mr. Cole to fix the house, what we're all asking for is a little bit more time to get the work done, because he is a new owner as of September the 5th. I have the deed transfer copy here from the tax website. I have photographs of the work that has been done. The complaint basically was a tree had fallen and struck the back porch, tore the back porch up, tore up the steps, and one limb of the tree caught the corner of the main roof of the house and tore off 7 or 8 shingles. And mainly he was told, because he checked with the city before he decided to make the purchase to make sure the repairs were going to be affordable with this. He has a disability settlement check, and as most of you probably know, they come in increments. And he received a third, which he used to finish paying the man, Mr. Furchess, when he bought the house. The temporary delay in these 4 months was waiting on the second third of the disability settlement money. It came in early this week, and he now has the funds to complete what's not completed on the house, but just needs the time. The porch has been rebuilt, and this is a photo underneath the porch. Shows the new joists, the new studs. This shows replacement vinyl windows being put in the front. We were told also locks had to be on the doors, deadbolts, and locking knobs are now on the front door and the back door. And get the tree off the house, out of the yard, get the stump gone. The stump has been removed and is gone. The tree,
Flip
Mr.
around.
Cole wants to burn wood, and so the tree was cut in.
Somebody help him flip that around.
Rolled to the back property line.
Yeah, there we go.
It has not been split and stacked as a proper stack of firewood yet. That needs just a little more time. As you can see, it has been cut in chunks and rolled to the back property line. We also have, it was also on the list of things he was told there's no faucet in the kitchen cabinet. That's been done in this photograph here. And the deadbolt on the back door and the lock has been installed there. This is the porch that's been rebuilt. The steps were to be rebuilt. As you can see, the steps are not finished. The handrail's not up. You can see the upper treads are in, the bottom ones aren't. The Arctic blast set in last week, and we didn't get everything done. We hope to have done by today.
What's the timeline that you feel you have for the rest of this project?
Could he have 120 days? We've got to put the cement fiber shingles have been bought to match the house on this wall of the porch. They've already been bought. I have that receipt here. We've got to put these cement siding shingles on, put the window in the hole and the door in the hole. The door's been bought. I've got a photograph of it right here. Screens have to be put in. They've been collected. I have a picture of them.
Okay, well, just hold
need a
on.
little time.
Okay, pause on that. Look to Councilmember Larson. It's in the South Ward.
Yeah. Do you think you can get all this work?
All right. You think you can get all this work done in 120 days?
I believe so, sir.
Okay.
Money is here. I believe it.
If you will sign the voluntary statement, then you will have 120 days to complete the work.
But me not being the homeowner, I don't know if I can sign the voluntary statement.
Well, the owner, Mr. Coe, whoever the applicant or the owner of the house would have to sign that.
Okay.
And you can get with the city agencies, and
They will. As I mentioned, he's on a disability. His sister is his payee custodian. Can she sign it?
Yeah. I've been by the house this weekend. You could clean up the yard; wouldn't hurt.
Right. I had people start moving that stuff.
It's a highly visible site on the corner there.
Right.
And you need to get on it.
Okay. We'll get him on. Like I say, there would be more done today if it hadn't been the Arctic blast and subfreezing in the middle of the day. But I think that's plenty of time.
That'd be fine. 120 days. Thank you.
I'll move approval of the motion with the BDA option 120 days.
Is that second? All right. And please, I would ask that staff would intentionally go out to the property, because to the owner's property, if he is disabled, to make sure that we're able to make contact with him. Only if she has full power of attorney can she sign on his behalf.
I believe she is.
If not, then he would have to be the one to sign to make sure we can get some type of agreement consummated. We have the motion before us, 120 days, VDA. All in favor, vote yes. Those opposed, no. That is unanimous.
Bless you.
Bless you. So if you'll get with staff, they will work with you there. See what y'all started on the 120 days.
It's all right.
Well, I will say, in this gentleman's behalf, it looks like to me y'all have taken it seriously since he purchased it in September, and you're moving right along.
Somebody's been working.
We would, like I say, if he could have got the second portion of his settlement earlier, we would have had more done, but he used up his money paying Mr. Furchess to close the deal on the house, and he had to pay on the second.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Item C9. And just for the record, C7. Item C. I went to you first, now I'm skipping over. Item C7. Staff will come. Item C7.
Item C7, 2H Investment Corporation, 2500 Lamont Street.
This property is located in the Southeast Ward. The list pendants and violations were filed on the property at the Register of Deeds office on April 12th of 2017, and the property became eligible for demolition August 9th, 2017.
All right. Now will you come and give your name and address for the record?
Sure. So 2H Investments Corporation solely owns the property. Amy Ruth Hallett, that's myself, is the president of 2H Investments Corporation, and as Derwin said earlier, I also own and operate the UPS store in downtown, as well as the one on Knollwood Street. Okay? And as a note, I will make note that the city loan that was given to 2H Investments for the downtown, the UPS store, is secured by this property. Okay, now, let's be no nonsense. And let's get down to tactics here.
You have our attention.
I have your attention. Well, let me tell you, do you know how many windows I bought for that place? I've replaced the windows 4 times. I respect you, Councilwoman, and I respect the fact that I want to treat this house like my neighborhood. But I also respect that the city owes me, and the police force owes me, because the vandalism that has been done to this property is above and beyond anything that should be tolerated. I myself personally have replaced the windows 4 times. My tenants, which by the way, were homeless, and they're on their way right now here to speak to you, replaced the windows in October for $300 with Habitat for Humanity windows. Those windows were broken out since October. Where is the police presence to combat this? I would say, where is the parental supervision of probably likely the children that are throwing the rocks through the windows? Yes, it's frustrating, and yes, it's very frustrating. It's frustrating for my tenants. They spent $300 at Habitat for Humanity, and they have the receipts. They're very upset. They're willing to do it again. We're now investigating plexiglass windows, which I will assist them in purchasing. Their lease with me is such that their 100% of what they put into the property goes against the lease, and they pay me $100 a month, and that is a documented, recorded lease. It is for 2 years because of the property and because of their financial conditions. They have a family, they have 2 daughters, and I wanted to take them out of the homeless shelter. I find it frustrating, to say the least, that every time I spend money on this property, it is destroyed. I spent $5,000. I have pictures of a white 6-foot fence that was put in so that people would stop littering and throwing trash on the property. I took pictures of it. The city came out. 3 weeks later, the fence was removed. Not by the city and not by myself, but by vandals. So granted, I might not have, the contractor didn't put the fence in strong enough. I don't know. But I will tell you it's frustrating. And as a no-nonsense homeowner and a property owner, I would ask 2 things. One, I would ask that we be given 180 days due to the past vandalism that continues to occur. But more importantly than that is I would ask the city to investigate a camera at the corner of Lamont Street so that you can catch these vandals and prosecute them.
Southeast Ward. Comments from the committee? Councilman Adams?
Again, we hear frustration from a lot of people, and it's the same frustration all over the country. So I know you didn't mean it, but when my police or law enforcement, public safety, when they sometimes maybe, they feel like we task them with more than what they can do. This is like at school, we expect teachers to raise our kids when we're not raising them at home ourselves. But our police and public safety officials, again, with a city of almost 250,000 people, we are not about to hire up that many police. And everybody, like you said, needs to understand that. They do what they can do to protect us. This situation here, we see this all over. But I don't know, I can't tell you how you're running your business, who you're renting it to, but, I don't know, city manager, we do have some cameras somewhere located throughout some of our city, but they cost a lot of money. We don't put them out everywhere, and most people don't even know where they are because that's the reason why they're cameras. But my concern is, I'm looking at the vandalism, but, and maybe you've repaired the roof and the siding. I'm like, how did all of that happen? Was that the weather or was that vandalism as well?
No, the roof has a patch on it, and the roof was caused by the tree falling down, and the tree is off the leak is fixed. This is my tenant, by the way.
Hi.
She just arrived.
And so a couple things. One, we have most of the pictures we have here from the interior are from early part of last year, January of last year, and then the other ones are exterior. My recommendation on the item would be to give the standard that we've done this evening, which is 120 days.
I would like to ask for 180 days only because my tenants are homeless, but they are working through this, and part of their deal and part of their rent is that they're able to show progress and they can work off these items.
Yeah. Well, and so with the 120 days, so what happens with that process, as explained with others, is that once you do those items and they're completed, staff will come out and inspect those items, and if they've been completed at that time, that normally comes off. As well as if a person has made substantial progress through that time frame, there's also opportunities for that to be done.
She accepts it. I accept it.
Okay. Is there a motion? Someone will make that as a motion.
Could I ask, though, can we at least ask for cameras?
Well, we can ask.
You can ask.
And also, in terms, and also pass this information over to Councilmember Taylor as well, just in the Southeast Ward. Do I get a motion for what she accepts on the 120 days, and then we'll go to other comments? Is there a motion for it?
I'll make the motion. I'd like to speak. Yeah. Ma'am, I haven't previously heard, I don't represent the area, so I'm not as familiar with as much detail as Councilmember Taylor will be. I have not previously heard this is a particularly high vandalism area, but perhaps that's just the way it is, unbeknownst to me. But have you had an opportunity to speak with Councilmember Taylor about the crime issue?
We have filed multiple police reports. Prior tenants have followed multiple police reports. I have not spoken to him directly myself, no.
I would recommend that as an approach because he is actively involved in this kind of issue in the community, and I'm sure that if he sees an opportunity to help, he'll be interested in doing it.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember.
Oh, and I would make note that the UPS store does have 2 cameras that are totally available to the police department and are specifically positioned at the corner of 6th and Liberty Street. And we do have signage that tells everyone they are being recorded.
Councilmember Larson.
As a question of policy, do we issue demolition orders on occupied residents? If somebody is actually living in the building, we're authorized to order a demolition on an occupied building?
Yes.
And what happens to the tenants at that point?
If the tenant has not vacated the property by the time the property is to be demolished, there's a procedure by which to have through the court process the tenant removed.
As a practical matter, that seems to me to be extremely unlikely in this case. We're talking about relatively manageable
That's exactly.
repairs.
Exactly.
Correct.
And it's a repair or demolish order as opposed to
Just simple demolition
a
order.
demolition order.
Right.
And just so you know, in my 28, almost 29 years here, I've only had to exercise that process twice.
That's right.
Did one of them handcuff themselves to a porch?
What do you say?
Remember that?
I wasn't on the council.
Oh, yes, that one.
Yeah.
Lived near one of the council members, if I'm not mistaken.
That has been approved unanimously by the committee, so that'd be 120 days. This item will go to the full council meeting on Monday, and so this is a recommendation
Okay.
from this committee that goes to the full council that'll be voted on Monday night.
Okay.
Okay, Councilman Clark.
As soon as you fix something,
I
call
know.
staff and have them inspected.
I'm going to because I just am very frustrated with the window situation, as you
Understand.
probably can relate to this.
Yeah. And I sit with a number of folks in here. The infomercials you watch on TV concerning the great advantages of rental property aren't always what you think they are.
No, I will.
And the headaches that you have experienced and the gentleman before you, et cetera, et cetera. But as soon as you can get it inspected, then they'll mark it off.
And we can go for interim inspections, correct? So as we get one item cleared and one item cleared, we don't have to clear all the items. Is that correct?
That's a staff.
Okay.
All right, Councilman Bessie.
Just one other note, depending on what your schedule's like and how aggravated you are, Councilmember Taylor is on the next committee to meet, which starts at 6 o'clock. If you care to stick around, I'm sure that he'd make time to speak with you.
I will do that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And one council member.
And he also chairs the Public Safety Committee, by the way.
Please, yeah.
Good.
All right,
Okay.
thank you very much. Item C9. Item C9.
Item C9, LCR Investment LLC, 2408 Lucille Street.
Staff will come first. You can take the first seat there, sir. You can take the first seat.
This property is located in the Southeast Ward by LCR Investment. The list pendants and violations were recorded at the Register of Deeds office on April 12th of 2017, and the property became eligible for demolition October 12th of 2017.
You'll come and give your name and address for the record.
My name is Ralph Vestal. I live at 4675 Evans Creek Church Road, Kernersville, North Carolina. This is the first time that we've ever had to go through this in the years that we've had rental property. My family has owned this house and two others on Lucille Street since the 50s. My parents moved in on Lucille Street in June of 1949 and still live there. My mother does. There is nothing in the yard. The house does not look bad outside. It's got vinyl siding. The roof is repaired. It was leaking. The front porch is concrete. It's not wood or anything, so it's not deteriorating. And yes, it does need some work inside. But we can't rent the house. The reason being is the parking lot that's beside of it. John Holloman decided that he was going to tear down. There's only 6 houses on this street. John Holloman tore 2 of them down and made a parking lot for his race cars. I have complained to the zoning board. Both of these lots that he did was zoned residential. No one's done nothing about it. The zoning board told me that they made some concessions for people that race at Bowman Gray. There's nobody that I know of that races at Bowman Gray that has 12 trailers and trucks to haul their cars to Bowman Gray. He has put up so many lights that the only good thing about this house right now is it's shading my mother's house that's 88 years old that lives beside of her to keep the light from shining in it. I mean, this light lights up the whole road, all the way down. There's only 6 houses on the road. We own 3 of them, or there was 6 houses. Now there's only 4. and we own 3 out of the 4. But John Holloman has made this thing impossible to rent. I mean, it's like there's not a shopping center nowhere that has lights as bright as what he put in that parking lot. And I don't understand why he got to do that since both lots were zoned residential.
All right. So, a couple of things. One, I understand your frustration and your concern there. The challenge is that even though you have the frustration you have with the other property, we still got to deal with whatever the concerns are with this one.
I
So the
understand.
question that I have for you is a timeline in terms of dealing with the violation, the unfit violations that are there. Do you have a sense of how long it'll take you to do it?
I don't know. I'm there every day.
Well, you're going to have to give us something to work with, or what you're going to be able to work within. The current recommendation would be 90 days. What you've heard, if you've sat through the meetings today, is that some people have been given a 120-day as well as a VDA.
I would like to have 120 days, but even after I do the repairs, I can't rent the house. Nobody will live in that house with those street lights shining in it. You think I'm kidding? Go
So would
out
you like
there
the
at
property
night.
torn down?
Excuse me?
So would you like the property torn down?
No, I don't want that house torn down.
So
We've
you would
owned
like
that
it to
house
be
since
repaired?
the mid-50s. I grew up in that neighborhood. I was 6 months old when my parents moved on that street. My 88-year-old mother lives at 2416 beside this house.
Right. So
We also own 2418 Lucille Street.
All right. Thank you. So if there is a motion from the committee to issue a specific order on this, I'll hear that motion on the property itself. And then I would also say that this property is also located in the Southeast Ward, and to get the thought from Councilmember Taylor in reference as well. Councilmember Clark.
I was going to say, sir, if you can get the house fixed up, we will get staff to check on the zoning issue as far as using that as a parking lot. And,
Oh, I've already been to the zoning board. I talked to some guy.
well, I'm not going to the zoning board. That's not really their. I'm going to the zoning enforcement people who's sitting right behind you. And if it's not zoned for auto.
Already checked that also, sir. I went to 2 different places in City Hall and checked it. And
Well, I'm going to check it. Paul, if you could check that out for us, the gentleman behind you is the department head there. And we'll try to work that if you'll get the house fixed up.
I'm serious as I can be. There's no way nobody would rent that house with those street lights there.
Councilmember Adams.
And sir, we hear you, and we can appreciate you. But the point is, you still have to fix the house up, whether anybody lives there or not. Probably,
What's wrong with
wait,
the house?
wait.
Excuse
Let me
me.
finish. Probably 90% of the houses, if not more, properties that come through this committee, none of them are rented. They just there, or they'll come and they'll tell us they tried to rent them and they can't keep them rented. We understand all of that, but the point is the property still sits in the city of Winston-Salem.
I understand.
And their ordinances. So all we're asking is, even though you can't rent it, you still have a responsibility as a property owner to make the house appearance-wise represented.
It has vinyl siding on it. All the wood on it is covered with metal. It has a concrete porch.
Well, at this time, thank you very much.
Thank
Is
you.
there a motion from the committee to make anything and set anything in motion for this item?
I would give 120 days.
If there's a motion, someone please move for that. And second.
Second.
That has been moved and properly second to give this item 120 days. I do not hear that as an agreement for a VDA, but just 120 days. Okay.
And sir, we will try to get it back. If you'll turn around when you finish and give Mr. Norby be sure he's got your name and address and phone number, we'll let you know what he finds out about the
Okay.
the zoning.
Thank you, sir.
That is a unanimous vote. This item will go to Monday night's full council meeting, where the full council will vote on this item. And again, Councilmember Taylor is a council member of that area, so if there's some other concerns that he may be also to assist with you with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Uh-huh.
sir.
All right, we will return or get to the general agenda. We have 3 items on general agenda that we will address. Item G1. Item G1.
Item G1, presentation by the Piedmont Triad Regional Council on the activities of the Northwest Piedmont Workforce Development Board. Item continued from the December Community Development, Housing, and General Government.
Good evening, Chairman Montgomery, members of the committee. On an annual basis, staff, we try to provide an opportunity for the Piedmont Triad Workforce Development Board to come and offer you a presentation on its outcomes and activities. And so we have with us today Wendy Walker-Fox, who is the Director of Workforce Development for the Northwest Piedmont Workforce Development Board, to provide you with a brief presentation.
Right. Now you have a hard task because Eben has said you have a brief presentation.
I'm going to keep it brief. Good afternoon, Council. Thank you very much for having me. I'm super excited to give you guys a brief update on the things that are happening in workforce development. Just to start off with a little bit of history, back in 2014, the state mandated that workforce development services could no longer be delivered through workforce development boards. And what that meant for Northwest Piedmont is that we needed to contract those services out to a service provider. So the chart that you have there in front of you outlines our new structure. Our service provider for adult and dislocated worker services is ResCare, workforce company, and then our youth services provider is Goodwill. And then you have laid out there the 7 counties that both of those organizations cover. We were really excited actually about this opportunity to move forward with this transition because it provided us an option as a board to really kind of change our focus and focus more on strategic initiatives, partnerships, and really hone in on meeting the needs of job seekers and employers in our local area. As we did that, you'll see in front of you now the numbers that we served in our last program year. So we've broken out the numbers specifically for Forsyth County. You see your adult population, the youth population, the individuals served, and then the unique services or the number of services they could have received within the county. And then we've compared that to the PTRC region as a whole. So it's a pretty significant number of individuals that were served in Forsyth County alone. So I mentioned that the transition afforded us the opportunity to really change the focus of the Workforce Development Board. I have kind of a philosophy that focuses on a 70-30 model. 30% of our efforts are guided toward those federal workforce development dollars that we have. It's kind of the standard money that we have to put towards training and getting individuals employed and work with businesses and employers. The 70% of our efforts need to be focused on innovative ideas, coming up with new ways, new funding streams, so that we can also serve those populations, but not necessarily work within the box that we've always worked in with federal funds and all of the requirements. So one of the first things that I'll highlight are the North Carolina Certified Career Pathways. So within our region, we have 4 certified pathways. There's healthcare and nursing, advanced manufacturing, transportation and logistics, and aviation. And what these are really high demand, high growth employment clusters. So efforts are really focused around those, around outreach, creating marketing initiatives that highlight the career opportunities that are available in these clusters, and then working with employers to create actual opportunities for individuals that would enter into training programs in the clusters. We have really focused in Northwest Piedmont on a couple of the clusters in particular, and one that I'm going to highlight is advanced manufacturing. And we realized early on that there's a real disconnect, in particular when it comes to youth and the image of manufacturing. So we partnered up with an organization through the National Manufacturing Institute. It's called Dream It, Do It. We actually launched Dream It, Do It Piedmont Triad back in April. And what Dream It, Do It is a national resource of resources. So these are best practices that have been proven across the country to work in changing the perception and really working to build not only the skills gap, but also the interest gap when it comes to careers in advanced manufacturing and when it's focused on the youth. So I have a short video that kind of highlights some of the work that we've done with Dream It, Do It. Oh no. I know, it never works. It's gonna work. It's gonna work. Well, The Dream It, Do It campaign is a national initiative that's focused on educating millennials on opportunities within manufacturing, career opportunities, really just exposing them and creating a manufacturing experience.
Often people don't even consider manufacturing as a career, don't know anything about it. And Dream It, Do It really aims to get manufacturers directly involved in reaching young people in ways that give authentic experiences about what modern manufacturing is all about.
So there are resources and there are tools, there are best practices that are available through the Dream It, Do It network. We are now a member of that network in the Piedmont Triad region. So our employers, our educators, all have access to those resources. They can set up programs like the Ambassador Program. They can participate in Manufacturing Day activities. There's just a myriad of activities that are available and resources and support programs that are available through Dream It, Do It.
Ambassadors are really important for manufacturers to invest in. They play a front-facing role for the industry. They are relatable employees that are well-spoken, that can speak to the community and provide a message that manufacturing is a great career to go into and get students and young people and the next generation excited about what they do. Manufacturing Day is the first Friday of every October, but again, Manufacturing Day can be any day. A lot of states have Manufacturing Month or Manufacturing Week, and Manufacturing Day is really when manufacturers open their doors to the community and invite in parents and students and educators and get them involved in what they do and get them engaged in hands-on activities, whether it's showing them around the plant or putting on an event for girls interested in STEM careers. So it's really manufacturers getting local educators and again students and parents and teachers involved in their efforts and showing them why manufacturing is a great career option for young people.
I believe we can make North Carolina a top 10 educated state. And we're going to have to do that with the jobs in advanced manufacturing now. This is Manufacturing Week. But manufacturing today doesn't mean the same thing as manufacturing 20, 30 years ago. Because we know that most of the jobs now are going to require more education after high school.
So we are super excited about the Dream It, Do It initiative at Piedmont Triad Regional Council. We'd love to have everyone get involved, and you can do that by visiting our website. It is didinc.org. Events that were highlighted in that video, we did an ambassador training back at the end of the summer, where we brought employers together and they had identified individuals within their organization that they would like to appoint as ambassadors for manufacturing careers. And so these people would actually go out and talk to student groups or any types of groups that needed to be educated, and they could give a firsthand experience. So we brought down the actual professionals from the Manufacturing Institute that provided that one-on-one training to kind of prep them for going out and talking about and sharing their story about their experiences working in manufacturing. So you can see the numbers there. Our efforts through Manufacturing Week and so far with Dream It, Do It, we were able to impact about 1,800 students. We interacted with 17 schools, and then we had contact with 81 businesses during that week. So it was a pretty big effort, things that we are definitely quite proud of. So the last slide here is a save the date. We have a workforce development summit that's coming up. It's not a very good view there, but it's going to be February 21st on the campus of Forsyth Tech Community College. So we're going to use this opportunity to talk about a study that we're engaged in. It's the Triad Talent Strategy. And basically what this study has brought together regional businesses and education leaders to really look at the relationship between education and workforce development and make sure that the efforts within education and workforce development are aligned to really meet the needs and demands of business and industry. Registration is going to open up on January 22nd. We would love to have all of you come out. We're going to look at some of the recommendations that this consulting group has made. So we've done a lot of surveys. I know a number of you have responded to some of the surveys that we've sent out. So they're taking that data and they're bringing that back to the group. We're going to look at some of the things that currently exist and then how we can look at strengthening partnerships and expanding some of the efforts that we have going on in the region. So we're very excited about the partnerships and the opportunities that we have in particular in working with the city. Evan and Derwick have actually invited me to a number of events with the National Resource Network. So there are a lot of things that are going on, and anything that we can do to help. Our motto is kind of listening, assessing, and then addressing the needs. So are there any questions?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Questions? Councilman Adams, Councilman McIntyre.
Yes, thank you for the great work that you're doing. My comments are that a few weeks ago, a month ago, there was comments made in the media that we don't have employees ready to go to work. They're not prepared here in Winston when we thought we were, kind of kicking that can down the street. But it seems that, there's still a disconnect. As Spock said, you got industry, you got city, you got companies, you got people, you got all these groups that are working to try to bridge the gap. But the people that are affected by it, that need the jobs, that need the job training, whether it's our millennials, underemployed or unemployed, they don't feel like we're doing enough. And that's me, you, and everybody who they're looking to do it. And with the Poverty Thought Forth initiative that the city has undertaken, and I applaud our partnership with the Workforce Development Piedmont Group, wondering how can we help to make the perception better. I know we get the report, and we know a few people that go, and I've said this before, and again, I know you guys are doing what you do, but somehow or another, we've got to get better to get our folks prepared to go to work so they can get a job. If we got a great organization like yours that's connected to the county, connected to the state, connected to the big money that comes from the federal government, we now got to look at, and the city manager knows I've said this, we have now got to look at how do we best now utilize those funds and the resources that we can actually point to some people who can get out in front and say, I went through the training. It took me a couple of years to get my certifications at Tech, but now I'm working at X manufacturing company making X. I like the fact that you're using the mature workers. I think if you even put a call out and had a manufacturing day, whereas at that event you had mature people like me who spent almost 40 years in manufacturing to help other people understand that, as the governor said, no, it's not like old manufacturing. This is new manufacturing. So if you're not willing to learn the skill sets to do the computer business and the digital and all that, you won't be able to make it. I'm looking forward. I got this on my calendar for February the 21st, so I can be there next year. And this year. And I also would like to get on board with you for Manufacturing Day in October.
Great.
Because I'd like to give you a few suggestions as to how you get people.
That would be wonderful.
She'll give
them. We welcome them. Thank you.
Councilman McIntyre.
My question was just a housekeeping, and Councilmember Adams just answered. So it's on the 21st of Forsyth Tech?
Yes.
And what time?
It is from 9 until 2.
Great.
We have an awesome keynote speaker. It's Jennifer McNally. She's the former president of the Manufacturing Institute, and she's now the president of 180 Skills, which is a curriculum building company that has put together some really innovative ways of offering and delivering curriculum that was typically done in a lab setting. So she's a long history in workforce development. She's bringing some real solid ideas about building partnerships and how we engage and collaborate and educate and move forward in these initiatives.
All right.
Thank you.
Councilman Bessie.
Will the event on the 21st include a tour of the advanced manufacturing training facilities
there?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Not only advanced manufacturing, but we're also touring cyber security area, and then also, so the IT area and also healthcare.
Okay.
So we're going to do as many of the exciting things that are going on at Forsyth Tech as we can.
Very good. I was there for the dedication of one of the advanced manufacturing.
It's very
training facilities.
impressive.
It is impressive. It's at the main campus off of South Creek Parkway, southwest toward, of course. And
Ms. McCaskill?
Oh, my.
if you
Flip out.
If you haven't been there and can't be there on the 21st, I recommend stopping by and arranging a tour. It's worthwhile.
It's very impressive.
All right. The Councilman Larson has some, but I just did want to take the time to point out Ms. McCaskill is in the house today, and this may be. Will this be the last time you're here?
Oh, he's gone
Yeah.
already.
You are gone.
He's just a citizen. Support.
Okay. All right.
And how
the
many
first
years?
was your last day.
30 to 25 years.
Here, here.
Just wanted to take time just to say thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Larson and Mr. Clark.
Could you scroll back on your images to the one that showed the percentage or the numbers served in the region and the numbers served in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, where it would appear that approximately half or a little half of the adults category and almost a good third of the youth category. Can you tell me just a little bit about how those individuals that are served have been recruited and entered into your program?
So for the youth side, it's really all about partnerships. Goodwill has a very strong partnership network, and there are referrals that happen. So if individuals come into, say, the Forsyth County Career Center, and they fall within the youth category, which is 16 to 24, then they are referred to that youth program. There have also been outreach activities as far as on the adult and dislocated worker side. If there are incidents of layoffs where we have to go in as a board and provide rapid response activities, then we're certainly going to offer our services to those individuals that are involved in those activities as well. So we do have outreach opportunities. We have our partnerships with community partners, with community colleges, and community organizations as well.
This goes back to Councilmember Adams' question about marketing the program and making people aware of opportunities. And it sounds like that they probably don't know who the Piedmont Triad Regional Council is, but they might know who Goodwill is. Is that what we're dealing with? And so I don't know how Piedmont Triad manages to encourage the awareness of this program specifically and the partnership that the city has with the Piedmont Triad Council and the funding that goes through that. And I do think there's an awareness and marketing issue that we can maybe ramp up a little bit.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank
And
you.
you have someone else here with you tonight.
I do have my boss here. I don't know if I
Yeah.
want to say anything.
Just him.
Yeah.
Just him.
We do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. And I do have, and this is something that you maybe can send back. It's a reference to the numbers served, and I'm always interested in terms of when we actually talk about people who, and how we track folks who actually go into employment.
So
actually
demographic
move
information?
into, but not about just the demographic, but in terms of if you're saying people who are served here, does that mean a job, that they went into a job, or does that mean that they just went through the training?
Right.
And so
I can get a breakdown of that for you, so that shows what the specific service is that they received.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Item G2.
Item G2, ordinance revising Chapter B of Unified Development Ordinance to further restrict limited campus uses in residential zoning. Item continued from the December Community Development Housing General Government Committee.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'll be very brief on this because I know Michelle McCullough has a presentation for you that's coming up, and you had a presentation on this last month, and this was continued at Councilmember Larson's request. And just a reminder, we have Reed Morgan and Anita Conrad from Wake Forest General Counsel's office here, as they were last month. And Councilmember Adams last month asked us to do a side-by-side comparison of the different versions of this that have been in place. The one on the far left side is the existing ordinance that has been in the UDO since 1995. We aren't aware of any real problems that have happened in it, and it's been used very sparingly. The biggest example will be the Ronald McDonald House there. But this initiative happened as a result of a rezoning request by Wake Forest Baptist Hospital to expand the area that they have covered under their campus zone. And that rezoning went fine, except we had a citizen in Ardmore who was concerned that the effect of expanding the campus zone would also be to expand the limited campus use eligibility area. That's sort of a halo that's around the campus district that allows some limited uses related to campus. And so Councilmember Bessie, as he was dealing with that rezoning at the council level, requested that staff come up with a text amendment that would further restrict how limited campus could be done. And so our proposal was that third column over the original staff proposal. Our initial idea was elected body special use permit. This got reviewed by both Wake Forest as well as the neighborhoods, and actually both parties' reaction was that really was not something that either party desired. Wake Forest felt like the existing process is working well. There was no need to change it. The neighborhoods really were concerned about the elected body special use permit, that's a very difficult process for them to navigate and very legally complicated and all that. So Wake Forest then proposed a compromise, which is the one in the middle there, which is the scaling down the area that's eligible for the limited campus use to only those properties that are adjacent to the campus zoning district, and ruling out anything that's adjacent to a CL or a CS zoning special use of some form. And leaving it at the planning board with the current use conditions that are in the UDO. So the Neighborhood Alliance said, well, we kind of prefer both a combination of the staff proposal for special use permit and the Wake Forest proposal that shaved down the area that would be eligible. So that's why you have those four columns there now. Your usual practice for a text amendment that comes out of planning board is to brief it at the committee, and then it goes to the full council in the following month for a public hearing, and then the council decides where it wants to go. But that's just briefly how these different versions line up.
Okay, Councilmember Bessie.
Yeah, this is an excellent side-by-side comparison on the details. Thank you, Councilor Adams, for suggesting that. I think this makes clear what the alternatives are and exactly what each does and doesn't do. Just to sort of repeat the recap from last month, when the proposed expansion of the campus zone at Cloverdale and Miller came in, it was going smoothly. We were working through the details on the limitations in the L. That was going to be a C campus L. But when the concern was raised about this expanding the impact of the limited campus uses area, staff was not sure that we could do that by an additional condition in the L. So in addition to a workaround that we were able to utilize on a site-specific basis for that expansion, we asked, at my request, staff to look at something we could do to incorporate that opportunity more generally. The initial staff recommendation would have done it by the special use permit and our ability to put restrictions on special use permits. The Wake recommended alternative, as I looked at them side by side, is actually a much easier way to meet my specific request, because in addition to some refinements of the overall limitations on campus uses, defining adjacent property as sharing a property line immediately across the street. And in addition, it has to be within 500 feet, even on an adjacent parcel. The easy thing is that the limited campus uses are not allowed next to campus limited or campus special, so that all we have to do, if we want to not expand the limited campus use in a particular example of rezoning, is simply say that in an L limitation, language. Very easy to work in. So that meets the intent of the request that I started without going through the hassle of the expanded special use permit request. Therefore, I'd like to move that we recommend that alternative to the full council. Now, as a separate question, if council members want to separately pursue the issue of whether the existing process is too permissive, I don't have any objection to that. That's not what I asked for, and I'd rather not hold up this discrete remedy in the process of backing up and looking again at that. I don't think anybody was really happy, as Mr. Norby said, nobody was really happy with the limitations and parameters of the special use permit process. So I'm not prepared to recommend that we go that route.
So you're recommending the Wake Forest?
I'm recommending what the planning board recommended, which was the Wake Forest alternative as it's laid out in the memo.
Are you making that as a formal motion?
I'm happy to make that as a
I'll second
motion.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there additional conversation? Councilmember Larson.
Yeah, I've had problem with the 500-foot free fire zone, as it were, what I call stealth zoning, from the time this thing came forward with the proposal from Wake Forest originally on the hospital issue. I'm not sure how the 500-foot element got put into the zoning in the first place. It seems to be a very preferential sort of provision that has been stuck on that applies to a very limited constituency. Doesn't necessarily serve the broader interest, I think, of the neighborhoods that it impacts. So I am kind of mystified as to why we hold on to that element and why we don't just rewrite the ordinance and allow the hospitals or the universities to acquire property and request rezoning in the normal process that anybody else would do. These provisions really allow somebody to come in and acquire this property unbeknownst to a neighbor and put in a use such as a dormitory or student housing and basically no public review at all. It favors obviously large institutions that are well equipped to advocate the position and leaves very little room for neighborhoods. I would agree that the special use project going through the legal requirements of having to do, as we learned from the cell tower episode recently, that it's virtually impossible for neighborhoods to defend themselves in these kinds of situations unless the guidelines are very clearly written. What I'm advocating, or what I've advocated for clearly, is to have a transparent program that allows public review at all levels and allows neighborhoods and individuals and neighbors to know exactly what's going on in their neighborhoods. And I think that parts of these recommendations are very good. I'm kind of query about why quasi-legal applies to the council's deliberations and not to the planning board's deliberations. Can somebody explain that to me?
It does.
I'm sorry?
It does.
It does. So in which case the process would be the same whether the council reviews it or whether the planning. My problem with the planning board is that it's composed of 50% of the county appoints that position, and none of these universities are in the county. These universities impact neighborhoods in the city. The wards that we represent are in the city. And the deliberation and the constituencies that we have to represent are in the city. And I'm not sure why the county, half the planning board, has review authority on this one. I think it should reside and the governing body that has the authority in the land that these places are located. So,
Madam Attorney?
I'm not sure I understood Mr. Marks's question. I guess if you were asking whether or not the planning board, when it issues a special use permit, has to follow the same quasi-judicial proceeding as the council, yes, it does. But I'm not sure that this involves the issue of a special use permit.
And there are no special use permits that are assigned to the planning board for it to handle. Anything is either the Board of Adjustment or the council in terms of special use permits.
I'm not clear on this, and I'm not sure, that we're going to belabor this point. The obstacle with the quasi-judicial, as we saw in the cell tower deliberation, if this is the pattern that is going to be imposed by using a special use permit process on this particular campus control, it's going to be very difficult. I guess what I'm asking is that the only solution that the planning board's come up with, the planning staff has come up with, to allow neighborhoods to control what happens in their neighborhoods? Or do we need to abandon the campus stealth zoning 500-foot provision entirely and go back to open and transparent zoning that allows people to be involved in what happens in their neighborhoods?
Councilmember Bessie?
Yeah, Councilmember Larson certainly has what amounts to a proposal for a fundamental change, essentially eliminating the limited campus option. If you want to bring that forward and advocate for it, I'm not trying to stop you from doing that. Just saying that's not what I was asking for. And so that's why neither the planning board nor the planning staff prepared an option to do that. And again, all I'm asking the committee to do today is recommend that we move forward with one of the options that was prepared that does specifically meet the change that I had asked staff to prepare. And in terms of where the limited campus option came from in the first place, what its history was, what took in favor, there's a pretty good summary of that in the memo from Mr. Norby that's a part of the packet here.
Oh, I've read that, and I'm aware that it's been around for 20 years.
Right, but hold a second. I'll come back around to that, because I share a similar concern, and so we'll roll it back around. Councilmember McIntosh.
Can I sort of bring this back to a more fundamental sort of conversation about what we're talking about? This came up because of a neighborhood's concern about Wake Forest being able to leapfrog over non-campus zone property into an area
that they weren't previously reaching through their existing campus.
And has what planning staff recommended eliminating that possibility?
Yes.
I'm good.
It has to be adjacent.
Yeah, it has to be adjacent property.
And there's not the potential for creep, as in, okay, we do this one, then we do that one, then we do it, without going before a public hearing and an elected body.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, I'd like to hear from Wake to make sure that they understand that that's the solution that we're talking about here, so that we're not talking about doing something, allowing them under the cover of night.
You can nod, Reed, if you want to.
At the risk of inviting an attorney to a microphone.
To the podium.
Mr. Chair, members of the council, that is, we understand the proposal is to have true adjacency with properties across the street counted as adjacent.
Thank you.
Reed, you might want to give your name and address.
Yeah, name and address for the record.
It's Reed Morgan. I'm at Wake Forest. My business address is Wake Forest, 1834 Wake Forest Road, Winston-Salem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. You've already put the motion on the floor?
Yes.
Yep, okay. So there's a motion and a second on the floor for the item. I will say that the one area of concern, and I know what the specific request was, and I know Jess, in light of just the email that I received and I think the rest of the council received, I think is a good concern that was brought up, just in the sense of the public conversation around how public engages with the approval or denial of an action like this, which I do believe that having a process that comes before council, like a regular zoning process, is one that makes sense for community engagement and makes one for neighbors to participate in the process. And so I say that to say my own personal viewpoint and stance is that I think that neighbors should be able to participate through their council members through an open forum such as that goes from the planning board to the council for full deliberation and approval, and not through the special use permit process and not simply through a review of the planning board. But Councilmember Adams.
Yes, as you can see from the material, the Neighborhood Alliance has been and was involved in this process. And if you read their attachment, they are okay with this. You know, if they in a perfect world, they might have changed one or two things. But as you can see from the matrix, they and Wake Forest were kind of right there together working through this. So I think that's still a good thing when we can deal with these issues, where the people that represent the neighborhoods can work with us on them to help get to a conclusion.
Okay. But I just wanted to at least just assert from my own perspective for what and how we process and where we move through it.
Be clear about this.
And so I will not ask for change in what we have here to hold up, but I just wanted to be clear on where my position stands in reference to that. And so we've all actually already voted. So that's 3 in favor and 1 abstaining, and that's me. Councilmember Larson, you had additional?
Yeah, I will oppose this. I mean, I just have to publicly oppose it. The Alliance does not endorse this. Their last statement is they want the city council involved in these decisions, not the planning board. They want that representation at the local level, and I would be clear about that. I think the question ultimately is to Councilmember Bessie, is what is being proposed that you sought to accomplish? Was the vision dealing strictly with the one incident that prompted this? This is a universal application that you're seeking to use, and my only question to you, I suppose, is why limit it to keep this particular 500-foot stealth zoning element in the code that still allows institutions to come into neighborhoods and impose a use without neighborhood comment on the matter?
Well, and I will acknowledge Councilmember Bessie on this item, but it has been voted on improvement, so debate on the item I won't hear much more of, but I'll recognize Councilmember Bessie.
And Mr. Larson, I recommended and continue to, in fact, fairly strongly recommend adoption of the change that is included in the planning board's recommendation, because it does address generically the concern that came up in the one case. It means that any time we expand or create a new campus use, we do not have to permit the off-campus limited campus zonings. All we have to do is make it a CL or a CS. And categorically, there are no limited campus uses that can be associated with that zoned area. It does address the specific issue that came up in that case on a universal basis. What you are proposing, in effect, is elimination of the limited campus usage, period, citywide. I don't have any objection to your beginning that debate. That was not the debate that was undertaken in this case. And I don't want this more limited, targeted solution to be held up during what I anticipate would be a year or two long process of debate over the proposal to eliminate the limited campus usage.
And to staff, I would ask just that we would, if you'd work on kind of pulling up what that means, just for staff. Because I think there's a good question there for us to continue some type of conversation on. So we would have that information for council to be able to facilitate. And Councilmember Larson, if that's something that we desire, that you desire to have that come forward, to make sure we communicate that so that in the proper form we can have that to move forward through the proper committee. All right. It is 6 p.m. We have item G3. Councilmember Bessie.
I think we've got a light agenda tonight on Public Works, and I don't have any objection to postponing that to 6:15, Mr. Chair.
All right. Item G3.
Item G3, presentation concerning local historic landmarks and other ways of recognizing history.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Chairman Montgomery, councilmen and woman. Thank you for hearing me tonight, even though I would love to come back and hear you all again, because it's always interesting. Let me get everything up. For the past several years, we have been discussing local landmark designation and status. And I've come before you several times to deal with different questions and issues we've had. Two of the most major was the application of the landmarks. And the Historic Resource Commission dealt with that issue in 2015, 2016, where they had a subcommittee review their application, tried to make it easier for applicants to submit, and that has been working. They have been utilizing that application. The second issue was with criteria about landmark status. And we did some research trying to figure out, can we make some specific criteria locally? It seemed to be a big issue when we had residential structures come in. It wasn't about the big development projects downtown. It was more residential structures. I dealt with the Institute of Government, our legal department, other legal departments, the State Historic Preservation Office, and the criteria for local landmark status is the same as National Register status. You have to have significance, and you have to have integrity. I'm not going to go into a lot of this because it's in your report that has been given to you. But again, those are the two specific things. Again, we wanted a little more. Because that didn't seem like enough, so we created for the city of Winston-Salem an additional 1 page to the applications to give you guys some more information that you requested, each of you at the last meeting where you gave me information and what we should change. So this is part of the Winston-Salem application. But that criteria is set and is followed. And again, I'm not going to bog you down with process and everything tonight. Part of the big issue with the landmark status is it does have a great carrot with it, and it's one of the only historic type of programs that has a carrot left with it, that there's a 50% tax deferral, up to a 50% tax deferral, whatever's designated. And there's the pride factor. We get the information about that house, that building, and everything like that. And what we saw now, why I'm here this evening, is there seems to be a disparity in parts of Winston-Salem with that history, having landmarks in certain places in our city, and having them not have that opportunity to use that carrot. Just want to keep in mind, with every carrot, there usually is a stick, and there is a stick with this program too, but there's a great regulatory process that goes with it. Anytime you want to make a change to that property, you have to get permission from the Historic Resource Commission, and you have to keep it at that preservation level. So that means, what does it cost then to a person who owns a landmark? Easy to apply, $50. Durham, it's $1,400. So we researched all that too. What does it cost to get the application done? If nothing is known about it, you should hire a consultant, $5,000. But what the real expense is when you have to maintain that property at that preservation level. You can't put in those windows, those aluminum siding. You can't do those changes. So that is an expense. And what we've heard from a lot of property owners of smaller properties or areas that aren't at the same level as some of the larger residential structures which we've reviewed, is that they don't want that regulation. And then it really doesn't make the 50% tax deferral, which is supposed to help with those costs, doesn't do a whole lot. So then what I wanted to look at your request is to look at what other programs are out there. Is there something else we can offer these people? Because what we don't want to lose is the history and the recognition and the educational opportunities for these parts of the city. There's still great tourist avenues for us. There's still great places to live, like we saw this evening. Some of those smaller homes, great building stock in there, great places to live. So the first thing we did was to look at the landmark areas where we are deficient. Are there properties there that should be? We have lost some of our African American history during the urban renewal period and things like that. Right off the top, we used the NRSA area, and right off the top we found 15 that would be, if they would come in the door tomorrow, I'd be so excited and we'd be bringing them to you. So yes, there are properties out there in these areas that would qualify for the landmark program. So that being said, the next thing I wanted to look at, again, was, like I said, is other programs that are out there, again, because most of those examples, if you saw in your packet, a lot of them were churches or more community-type buildings. They weren't that residential stock, which was our big question. So what I found out is it was hard to find any information. Because I'll tell you, commissions, because that's who I went to, like the Historic Resource Commission, we're regulatory. And we don't do a lot of this sort of programming. It's typically left to a nonprofit in the area, the state nonprofit, to encourage this type of thing and to create types of programs to help, to create maintenance programs to help people who really need it in communities. Durham has done their nonprofit has done several great programs, the Red Door program and things like that, really creative things like that. So we have a nonprofit in Forsyth County, but it's still getting on its feet. And I was at a conference this past fall, and they asked, I was sitting on a panel with Charlotte, Durham, and Greensboro, Raleigh, and they said, how many people here do programming? I was the only one who raised their hands because we value our history here, and I know that. So we do Preservation Month, and we do markers, but nobody else in this business really does. So to do more is hard for us. So, but what I did find out is everybody's having the same problem we are. What do we do about this deficiency in certain areas with certain sections of our community? We don't want to lose that history. Some of it's already, the integrity's gone. Urban renewal killed the area. There's 2 houses left instead of 20. So I found 2 programs, Greensboro and Randolph County, have started programs called Heritage Community Programs or Cultural Heritage Programs. However, there is no monetary or regulatory, so there's no carrot or stick. It is a pride program. So what happens is communities, areas, neighborhoods, the boundaries can be loosey-goosey, so then again, you don't have to hire a consultant. You can say, this is my area, and you get to come before their city council, their elected body. They get applause, and they get a piece of paper, and they do a little bit of something on their website. You can see Greensboro's here, right here in the left corner. So again, there is no financial, and there's no regulatory. It's a happy. Okay, and that would be an easy program to do here, you know, and we do try to acknowledge and educate about our different communities. Raleigh has taken it a little differently, and this is kind of the way we've done with some test cases, which I'll show you here in a minute. Raleigh is working with other city departments, like their Parks Department, and what they're doing is they're identifying the history in these public spaces to acknowledge and recognize. I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Chavez Park. If you know that in Raleigh, it's named after a 19th century free black preacher and teacher. Chavez.
His granddaughter went to college with me.
Okay.
Great-granddaughter, yeah.
He was a teacher for all races. They named a park, and they featured that history in the park. Great opportunity. Moore Square renovations, and when they did Moore Square, it was known as the Black Main Street. So they educated people about black businesses that used to be there. Another thing is they worked with their Arts Commission, putting those panel signs, you know, those banners up along different neighborhoods. It was an inexpensive way to recognize different neighborhoods instead of getting the big signs. And they also created a website, and that's on the right side of your slide up here, that's all historic Raleigh or Raleigh Historic. And they identify properties, but they have a lot of walking tours on there, and that's where they recognized it. Again, no financial benefit, but no regulatory benefit. So then I look nationally. We can go, you can go, you've been to major cities, smaller towns. Everybody has a way to recognize their history. There's cultural paths out there. There's identifying walks. You know, you can take a civil rights march in several cities right now. There could be footprints on the sidewalk that you follow or banners on poles. First 2 are D.C. programs that they've created in different environments, different neighborhoods in D.C., so you can see that. The upper right one is in Philadelphia, and again, it's about different history. Again, you've seen all these kind of programs. They're out there. The only place I could find that really communities now that has that financial, you know, is people utilizing their rehab programs and utilizing CBG funds and putting it in those, and somehow paint programs so that you can get free paint if you keep the wood siding. Somehow creating programs through that. We do get CBG funds, and that would be housing and such, but those are really the only area. Other national ways and other recommendations that you could, again, remember the sidewalk markers. They're great. I've gone to some cities where I think it was Chattanooga, which I followed a little mouse around. You know, you follow them, and you learn things. Citizens learn things. So here I wanted to show you some examples. In the public right-of-way, this is how you show it. Linda Dark, who is working to get the African American, I'm not going to get it right, archives, get a 501c3 for it. She would like to do some sort of black business down where Harrison Pharmacy was on 3rd. You go down there, and it leads straight to Innovation Corridor because there was a black commercial center there. What a great way to get people even more involved in our tourism. Another way to do it is through building markers instead of just a big, huge marker on every corner. Downtown's getting pretty full. I do a marker tour now, for the citizens. We go about every corner. We can stop and read a marker. We don't want to keep doing that.
No.
Building markers are great. They can be small. This church was built where Benjamin Franklin flew his kite. It's just simple little things people can pick up when they're here. So those are examples of that. I recently went to Gastonia. This is a digital touch screen that you go into this museum, and they have photos, they have maps, they have timelines, and you play with it, and you go in there. This is done by the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. They have 3 of these sites created. So this is a program that is just starting. Preservation North Carolina helped this Gastonia and Gastonia Mill have this. But could you imagine having one in the basement in City Hall or at our rec centers about the neighborhoods around there? And kids could play on it and look at pictures and look at timelines. Wow, I thought it was really a great idea. Again, and this picture just shows you other examples. We could do physical markers all over the place in different formats, in different ways. We could do, I think of the new Long Creek Park and having walking trails that not only say possums this way, but then may say Mr. Williams, first African-American farmer who did potatoes, at a national scale, had his residence here. Why not mark both of them? Very easy, very simple to do. I also want to share with you some kind of projects we've started. I saw William come in here. We've worked with Parks and Rec at the Gathering Place for Fairview. We did 5 of these, as you see them on the things, but they were these 5 panels about there. It was the most interesting thing I've ever done. We learned about the Red Sox, which was a baseball team that was, before the Negro League was found, we had some of the best players, and they went into the big leagues. We had a coach here that was taken immediately out. Nobody knows about it. I called the Negro Hall of Fame, and they did not know about it. And I was like, I have newspaper clippings of this team. What a great history. Almost lost. Could be gone. It's right here now. So we utilize this, and some of those facts and figures are also in that report of how much it cost us to get to do this and that sort of thing. Another example in Winston Square Park.
How much more time do you have?
I'm almost done. I'm wrapping up, honey, as quick as I can. Winston Square Park, we've got 4 women. Great. And now I'm stopped. So, wrapping it up. How's that? Winston Square Park, we did the same thing. We have markers out there. That's our one tried and true. The last marker unveiling, we had 12 applications, and we could only put in 2, but we learned great history. So there's lots of stuff out there that we can do. But the only way to get another financial program, I think, would be to create something local and to do it on our own, whether it be through a grant program or something. And that's going to take more research because there really is nobody else out there doing anything else like it. So it would have to be something new. So housing would have to hear from you. We could probably draw from the CDG fund program. And again, many of these ideas, again, are going to call for more planning, a little more research. They're also going to, the partnership of inter offices. Right now, the Historic Resource Commissioning and Planning staff has got a full plate. So we really need to encourage outside groups to get involved in this and to go for funding and that sort of thing. It's not going to be something I would love to do but couldn't take over, but really, we got our plates full, so it's going to take getting outside people involved.
Time.
And that is, I was going to say, and so the information's there, the report's in your packet.
Any brief questions or comments? Councilman Adams?
I just want to tell you, thank you again for running it behind this, from listening to us. I agree that we got to think of another way, and we talked about that. How do we get these funds? The people that profited from our communities being mostly destroyed or, moved. I think we need to get these corporations and businesses that profited from what happened to our history in this city and pull them in as partners, and hopefully others will come. But I think the big thing on the marker deal, it's okay, but I've been done with that a long time ago. Nobody really looks at that. It's up here. The panels we used at Fairview up there, that's the way to go, and we had talked about that because it's eye level and it's got actual visuals. Councilman Montgomery, you have over 8 already. Most of our history is in East Winston. My family lived in East Winston before we move to the north. Martin Luther King, like we talked about, Councilmember Taylor, the creative quarters, going when 40 closes. It would be great if we could get something going, because we've been talking about this for 4 to 8 years on Martin Luther King.
Councilman McIntosh.
Have we explored and/or is it legal to have a sliding scale as far as application fees for landmark? Unfortunately, so much of this comes down to economics. The greatest benefit is to houses that have high tax values. The flip side of that, though, is the greatest costs are to them when they go repair a tile roof, and we just had that case. So there's a tremendous amount of cost that I think is not seen, but also there's a lot of benefit there. Whereas if you own a $25,000 house that's a landmark, there's really no practical benefit to you there. So there's not really a carrot in that situation. But if other cities are charging a $1,400 fee, is that money that we could collect and earmark towards a more inclusive, create a pool of money that we could use in areas that are not quite so fortunate? Because it's a state program, and I just don't know if we're handcuffed or not.
Okay.
And I do think Durham has some sort of sliding scale, so we can look at that example.
We're only $50.
All right, Councilmember Larkin.
Well, it could go up.
Yeah.
I would hope that the city would take its historical resources and incorporate them into their broader planning as far as housing renovations, rehabilitations, and prioritizing neighborhoods. We've got some great neighborhoods that need reinvestment in, and they've got good housing stock in them, and they're historic neighborhoods. And if it takes designating and creating a heritage neighborhood to begin to give them a little bump up, a sense of the priority of how the city spends its money, and without encumbering the residents that are living there, but in fact recognizing the value of these historic neighborhoods, then I think that's something we ought to be looking at as part of our housing projects, giving them a priority. We have the Turn project. We've got these little bits and pieces around, but what we don't really have is a recognition of we have large historic neighborhoods with solid housing stocks, and we haven't figured out yet how to direct our funding and organize ourselves well enough. And by recognizing them as historic and giving them that additional priority, maybe that will help us target our programs toward those historic neighborhoods, revitalize them, save the houses, save the neighborhoods, and in the long term save our tax bases with that. So I applaud what you've been doing in recognizing and inventorying our historic resources. I applaud the idea of looking for additional avenues to educate the public about them. I think ultimately this council's got to figure out a way to invest in those historic resources, not just the history, but what's on the ground, and make sure that we figure out some ways to preserve those before we lose them. That's what's happening, and that's my fear, is that we're not going to get ahead of the curve. We'll recognize them, but we're not proactively trying to save them. So we've got some work to do in that category.
Right. I would ask Mr. Manager and others that we would, again, look at specific things that we can do, and, again, understanding what the dollar amounts and things associated, what funds exist there. As you all know, when it comes to historic landmarks, when it comes to residential properties, is something I just have problems with. I would love a policy that says that we don't even offer 50%, but only for residential we offer 25% reductions. I can get with something like that on a residential, and then I don't know from the state's ability if then on those properties or other properties are there ways to begin to accrue funds or things locally so that we can have other pools of dollars that we can tap into. I'm not sure those kind of things, but those are the kind of things that we need to explore, ask those questions of ourselves, and figure out opportunities and for us to continue that dialogue. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
6:25, please. 6:25.
All right. We're adjourned.